to the Ink Sink. I am Annie.
I'm Kaylee.
And we are not here this week. Sorry, everybody.
Rip.
But we're going to be talking about Frankenstein. Or not Frankenstein. We're going to be giving you something that is a patchwork of not body parts, episode segments from other episodes.
Got 'em.
Stuff from the cutting room floor.
You know what? Cats are great.
Cats are great.
I got to see your cat. She came up. She rubbed her little cheek into my hand when she smelled my hand, and she was like, "You smell like the lunch you're eating." And I was like, "I do." And she's like, "You can perceive me. Can I have your lunch?" And I said, "No." And she was like, "Well, then you're dead to me." And then she left.
My cat is like Garfield. Like, she really wants all of the human food. And she will eat it. Like, if you just, like, leave something out, you have to, like, guard your food when the cat's around. It's really weird. I've never had a cat who wants human food this badly.
That's really funny.
It's very weird. But don't worry, everyone. If you have a great picture of your cat and you live in
Chicago?
Massachusetts. You can trade pictures of your feline friends and feline adjacent friends, which apparently is just any pet or adorable thing out in the wild, to pay your library fees.
So I thought that was kind of cool. So they've already eliminated just like late fees, but if it's lost or damaged, they have fees. So for the books, apparently, this is just the original like program, and then this takes it a step further. So they'd gotten rid of the late fees initially, and then the remaining fees were for lost or damaged items, and they didn't want that to be a barrier to people that, due to like the pandemic or unforeseen circumstances, lost many things in their homes. So yeah, they went ahead and set it up so that you could bring in great pet pictures. Now there are some, caveats. If it's happened multiple times, or you've lost multiple items, or multiple items came back damaged, they had to have a supervisor. It only applies to books. There's a certain timeline where it has to hit. But other than that, like, it's a very limited number of caveats, so.
They called it March Mewness.
Very cute, yeah. So it's for the month of March.
Yeah, so it's already over.
It was for the month of March.
It's already over.
Yeah,
sorry, Massachusetts.
Done. Sorry if you didn't know about
I mean, I'm sure that there are at least a couple librarians who wouldn't mind if you just kept sending in pictures of your cats. Like, we also, by the way, just love it when people send in pictures of their animals.
Pictures of your pets.
Just go ahead. Send us pictures of your dogs, your cats, your feline adjacent things that you find out in the wild. Please no pictures of the Rock, though. We've got too many of those.
We do.
Which we will one day explain, probably.
They just show up.
So funny. A good press for the library, of course, and good intentions, breaking down barriers. Like, I cannot find anything to be even mildly annoyed at this about. It's so cute.
It's very cute.
Yeah, clearly a stunt, but I wrote in my notes, I'll take wholesome pro-library stunts over the anti-library bullshit we've been dealing with any day.
Oh my god, right? Absolutely.
And related, I sent this to you. It's not going to translate well because this is an audio podcast, but I sent Kaylee a link to, it's called a New York photo journal. It's a site it's called the New York Social Diary, and they talk to photographers to get them to send in photos. And this one person just had a whole cache of photos of famous people in New York with their pets, with their cats, and many of them were authors. And I said, Kaylee, this is slightly related.
And it was just wonderful. It's great. Some of them are so funny. It's like, because it's so funny. It's like this famous writer who's just pissed off that his cat is a murder machine.
Yeah.
This cat just torments small creatures constantly, and he's just like by the pool. This cat's just like looking up, super innocent. It's like this cat is just a constant death. Here it is. Oh, it's Tennessee Williams. Yeah. So he was in Key West or whatever. Oh, is constantly just stalking lizards, leaving their corpses all around, apparently. But
the captions are so charming.
The captions were great.
Yeah, there's one with Margaret Atwood in her garden with her cat, and it's just a black cat standing far away from her, but she's like, he loves me.
It's just so good. Yeah, there's so like adorable. Authors, actors, singers. It's wonderful.
Lots of people. I will link this in our show notes because I want to share it with everyone and not just Kaylee.
Yes.
But it is tangentially related to books. Okay, there are authors in here.
Also, we're going to share pictures of pets when we can.
Yes, of course. Moving on, Kaylee, I know that you obviously support us at the Ink Sing. So you know about bookshop.org.
I do.
Let me tell y'all really quickly about bookshop.org. So bookshop.org is an online bookstore that goes directly to a book distribution system. So it's able to offer books more cheaply and then also pass some of that savings on to its network, which is small independent bookstores. Every purchase you make from bookshop.org, a portion of that does go to a fund that supports small independent bookstores, which was essential during the pandemic. We are huge fans of bookshop.org. We do have an affiliate account with bookshop.org. If you buy anything from our list, we also get a commission, but we are just so excited that bookshop.org supports independent bookstores. So we always give them praises, and we will link to them pretty much every episode and all the time. So 10 out of 10 for bookshop.org. However, it is not the only one that's doing this.
Or at least doing something along these lines.
Yes.
It has a unique online model.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So this is from Today in Books, which is a Substack newsletter from Book Riot. You might have heard this made big splash, which is why they dug into it. So RuPaul, who is a big celebrity, he's most famous for doing RuPaul's Drag Race. He's considered like a gay icon, elder of the community. Which is fantastic. He's opening a new bookstore online that is, instead of kicking some of its profits back to bookstores, is going to be kicking the profits to authors. This is awesome. I want to be clear. I am in favor of this. I don't want to talk for you, Kaylee, but I'm in favor of this whole concept. It's awesome. I'm so happy. I think this is a great idea.
I think many parts of this are great ideas. I do think some of the ways in which they are actioning and executing are not.
Yeah, we'll get to that in a minute. We're going a little bit deep on the inside baseball bit here, and then we'll talk about the drama about RuPaul's new store lately. But essentially, these companies are going, again, directly to the printers of the books and saying, hey, let's cut out the middlemen of like the stores and the shipping and stuff. And so the distributors are just shipping directly to people. So it's cutting out a lot of steps, which makes it cheaper. It also leaves a ton of room for innovation in this space, which is why bookshop.org was able to kind of say, hey, let's just give that money back to bookstores. And that's where, obviously, we have our affiliate account. And, I mean, obviously, I'm never going to sit here and say that any one way of doing something is necessarily better than any others, because, obviously, I don't know. I mean, I'm not a bookstore owner. I don't know if, like, one is going to be better than other, but I do think that it's a good thing that we could see even more creative ways to handle some of these profits to support the industry better. I don't feel like this is a bad thing. I think that the industry profits have historically not gone to the people who need it, and I'm in for them going to people who needs it. Unfortunately, Kaylee, what's going on with RuPaul's store? RuPaul's store is called Allstora.
What's happening with this bookstore? Well,
Allstora.
They were going to include everything, Annie. And when I say everything, I mean everything, including racist and sexist, anti-LGBTQ+, which, I mean, a beautiful thought, pro-freedom of speech, we're all there. But there is, again, we've talked about this a bit before, your rights should be supported only so long and insofar as they do not encourage violence or infringe upon other people's rights or their existence. I think that's pretty straightforward. So they had several titles that are real bad. We will post the links. You guys can read the articles. We're not going to say them. It's maybe triggering for some people. I don't know your thoughts on that. And they were immediately doubled down before retracting. So it seems like maybe some people just needed to workshop this a little more before going out to the public. They got really excited by, ideals over implementation.
And it got a lot of attention immediately because it's RuPaul and people love RuPaul.
And these communities specifically were like, hey, what the fuck?
Yeah.
And for good reason, in my opinion. So there were just titles that were not kind to minorities for a variety of reasons and in a variety of ways that were initially available through an avenue that is being targeted at these groups or many of these groups. Mm-hmm. And so it didn't go great for them.
No, there was immediate pushback. And my first thought as soon as I saw that was like, IRL, if you run a bookstore, you are curating what goes into that bookstore. Like, I don't understand the initial pushback of being like, oh no, we want to make sure that we're platforming these diverse voices. And it's like, this is your store, right? Like, you can choose what happens here?
I know you want the gimmick of totally unrestricted speech.
It was so weird.
But you have a different gimmick.
Yeah.
It's fine.
Yeah, absolutely.
You don't need both things that hurt each other, like that are genuinely working at counterpoints.
Right, and especially because the RuPaul plan was to support authors at Allstora. So are you supporting those people? Because you're literally monetarily supporting those people. You, personally, with this system, with this plan, is monetarily supporting these people.
Or there are states that are not more great or whatever.
Exactly.
Whatever.
It was so I read it and I was like, this is kind of a non-story. Like, it seemed like internet drama. But then, like, in the context of, like, all of the ways that you could use this new system of redistributing profits in this way, why would you go this way?
But why, though?
And then double down? Like, you don't have to.
And then they were like, and then quietly just walked it all back and published an apology. Like, somebody just didn't think about it like that at all. And
agreed.
And just what practicality? Well, no, people won't buy this that much. Well, some people will. Right. But it doesn't matter. Do you want even $1 from your avenue that you've started, your innovation, to go to those views and those people? Like, no.
And of course, ultimately, like, the elephant in the room is Amazon, where all of these books are going to be cheaper, and Amazon does not care about platforming. Like, Amazon's going to platform anyone. We just talked about this recently on one of our most recent news episodes about Amazon, like, the, like, recent lawsuits that Amazon has faced from various people. Just, like, even just, hey, Amazon, you should probably post a warning if something has proven misinformation. Right.
And not maybe make it #1 recommended title in the science fact section.
Oh my God. For those of you who haven't been listening to the podcast for a while, this genuinely happened. There was a rash of, or a surge, I'm happy saying surge, of AI generated books, which, like, on the whole, like, you're like, oh, well, they would just be horrible quality. Even if someone bought them, it's whatever. They're just getting a bad book. But one of them, at least one of them, was about mushroom foraging, which, if anyone doesn't know about mushroom foraging, is fatal?
It can be, yeah. Mushrooms, a lot of mushrooms look very similar to, so there's the harmless mushroom, and then there's the mushroom that will kill you in 10 minutes.
Right. In a horrible, painful way.
And they look very close and frequently grow in the same region.
Yes.
And
it's horrifying.
Oh my God. Anyway.
So, that happened, and then Amazon was like, oh, maybe we should not let that happen. It's like, yes!
Probably.
What the hell?
Probably.
Given that you have the option. Anyway, so, like, this is all the whole program, the system of asking people to choose your store over Amazon's. Bookshop.org is saying, hey, we're supporting communities and small bookstores. RuPaul's Allstora is saying, hey, we're supporting authors. And Amazon is just saying, hey, we're supporting ourselves. So get it for $3 cheaper here, or pay that extra $3 and have it go to a good cause. And I absolutely get it. But yeah, like, the drama doesn't make sense to me. But I'm genuinely interested to see where it goes from here. Like, there are others. There's a service called Tertulia that makes deals with influencers, and their whole thing is that you can buy into a membership to get the discounted rates. And then also, if you they have an affiliate program like Bookshop. If you share a link, you'll also get some kickback from a sale of a book as well. So, like, influencers can immediately monetize their followers in that way. I guess, full disclosure, we have spoken to Tertulia. We are not part of their system, though. But yeah, it's like, I appreciate the idea of going up against Amazon, and I don't like the idea of saying that, like, because half the reason we don't like Amazon is it's content, and, like, if you're just gonna again platform those same people, what even is the point?
Yep.
Those are my thoughts. Let's move on. So stop talking about drama. Moving on. Kaylee, we don't talk about the audio market that often, even though we should, because we're an audio podcast.
You're right. We probably should. We've talked about it a couple times. I feel like this might be my fault, because you love audiobooks.
I do. I listen to audiobooks all the time.
And I like them. I love them a lot, actually, for very specific purposes. But for the most part, I'm a speed reader.
I understand.
And my ears can only process. Other people can only talk so fast. And I just listen maybe less quickly than I read.
Yeah.
So, problems for me. But anyway, I do love, again, driving, flying, training, whatever. I might, just anywhere that I can like do multiple things at the same time. Audio is great. So anyway, Brandon Sanderson put
our
out,
old buddy.
That's right. Gosh, he does come up almost as much as our dear friend Dr. Tingle. But anyway, so will you tell me what he has done that's innovative? And by that I mean is really surprising, actually, in the audio sphere.
Yeah. So for those who haven't been following the Sanderson saga, he released a series of books over the past 2 years and has said openly that he refuses to put them up on Audible because Audible's terms are not fair for authors. This is, again, the
Or clear.
Or, oh, sorry, what?
They weren't fair or clear.
Or clear, yes, sorry. I thought you said or Twitter, and I was like, what? That's why I was like, hold on. Can we just back up? Yes, they were not fair or clear to authors. Yes, thank you. And so he said that he wasn't going to be releasing these new books, and because Brandon Sanderson is one of the biggest, most popular, most
got a lot
well-read authors.
Got a lot of views on that.
Yeah.
And I will say it was a very fair but blistering review of their initial terms for authors.
So, again, publishing has an authors not getting paid enough problem. And so Sanderson was like, well, I can't fix that, but maybe I can get Audible to stop being a dick and specifically get authors more royalties from Audible. So Audible famously takes more money from its audiobooks sales than any other audio service does. And unfortunately, Audible is also one of the most popular apps to play audiobooks. And so by default, a lot of people feel that if they don't put their book on Audible, they're not going to get listened to at all. And they would rather have like a cent than have zero. So Brandon Sanderson sees all this, knows that he has a huge platform, and he can absolutely probably move the needle on the Audible management's terms. So he said he wasn't going to be releasing his new spate of books on Audible at all until they came to the table and agreed to change their terms to be more profitable for authors specifically. I won't say more fair, again, like what is fair at this point, but like more profitable for authors, more profitable for the people creating the thing instead of just all of the money going to Audible. So Audible, this is going to come up later, so I'm just going to explain it now. Audible operates on a credit system, so you pay for a membership, and then each month of that membership, you get a certain number of credits. The credits can be exchanged for books. You can buy new credits if you want more books. You do get to keep the books, just to be clear. But because Audible works on that credit system, the credits have a specific value. And if a bunch of readers are just keeping Audible, all of those profits are just going to Audible instead of any, and the only profits that go to the authors are when the readers buy credits. Again, you don't really need to know that, but it's going to become relevant later, so you just percolate on that while we talk about Sanderson. So Sanderson was like, fight me, Audible, and Audible said, okay. And
no, they said no, immediate surrender. Well, and maybe it was like, oh, we don't want to do that. Maybe we can figure something out. And then
they didn't. So we can't tell you what the terms of the new agreement is going to be because we don't know yet. But Sanderson at this point says that he is satisfied with Audible's proposal. Again, we don't have details, but there will be a new, presumably, terms for authors coming out from Audible, which will give authors more money for the books that they've written, which is awesome.
That is fantastic. And also, I just want to hats off to Brandon Sanderson because apparently he spent the last year fighting this fight. Yeah. So can you imagine how many back and forth, how many in-person conversations he had to put up with where they're that's not fun.
Oh, I can imagine.
People that are trying to sell you something, it's never fun.
Yeah, Brandon Sanderson famously operates a very lean team. He only has I think 6 or 7 staffers total in his entire little whatever it's called, empire. Stormlight Empire? Something like that. I don't know. But yeah, so he runs a pretty lean operation. So I genuinely do think that he himself was talking to some Audible reps, trying to get these numbers to be more fair for himself and his fellow authors, which I think is admirable. Go Sando.
Yeah, good for you, man. Hats off.
Speaking of audiobook systems, Spotify is another audiobook system.
Hopefully the things continue, like they continue to match at least and profit share appropriately.
Yeah, so Spotify, we've talked about this a little bit in the past, and I'll link to the episode where we talked a lot about Spotify and their new system. They have added audiobook streaming to their premium music membership, so people can get 15 hours of audiobook listening time if you have a premium membership every month. And if you decide that you want more than that, you can re-up it by paying $10.99 beyond that to get an extra 10 hours. This is different from the Audible system. Again, the Audible system runs on credits. The Spotify system runs on a membership where you have just a set number of hours. That does matter here because Spotify has now decided to match Audible on its membership price. So now Spotify is offering a audiobook tier that's just $9.99, which is what Audible is per month. And you won't have to purchase any credits. You just go in and listen to your books, which removes some friction and in theory would encourage people to listen to more books and would by default be giving the people who write them more money, not just because they're listening to more, but because that program is by default focusing more on the books than the credits.
Yeah.
So the math, in theory, maths out here. I don't know how successful it's going to be. This announcement is in Publishers Weekly, and it does look like it's a little bit complicated to set up, which is why I'm not totally sure what the uptake on this is going to be. I don't think it'll be an Audible killer, but that is what they're trying to do. They're trying to compete with Audible now. Yeah,
there was something about how you had to sign up for it outside of your app or something. It was a little strange. But also, and you know what, no, hats off, I get, matching, and that's going to be a great, advertising tagline. But, you can get the same number of hours and music ad-free for $1 more. The premium membership is, $11.
Is it really?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So you get the 15 hours, and it's okay, I Spotify. So it's $11 for that plus ad-free music. And I get why they did this and they went through and added this because again for the marketing, it's good, but just get the normal premium, guys. Just you have it already probably if you use Spotify.
If you are the primary account holder, if you have a premium membership. We talked about this last time. True. How if you are the primary account holder, you can get the books, and if you are on a family plan and you are not the primary account holder
then you're just sad.
What do you think, Kaylee?
I think that Spotify has not established itself as a platform for audiobooks. It is just recently moving into this space. Mm-hmm. And that's going to be interesting to watch because it's going against probably the behemoth in that sphere. But I guess we'll see.
Cue our time to talk about the robots.
Transformers theme song.
Robots in disguise. So, as an intro here, because we actually did get a bit of a listener jump recently, so I want to do a quick intro here. We've been talking about AI for a while in the past few years. Large language models, you might have heard of things like ChatGPT and Bard and others. They've been making tons and tons of headlines. They were trained on a lot of the writing that already existed on the internet. So that means that they were essentially trained on things that you and I could have written. But more specifically, they were trained on things that professional writers wrote. That's things that they never really paid for. They scraped all of this content off of the internet and put it into a database and trained their AI on it. And so now the bots can produce something that sort of sounds like a real person would say it. Even a well-written person, a very literate, knowledgeable person, which causes problems because obviously a lot of the things that they say sound good, but might not be accurate or coherent at all. So many people ultimately worry that this could come for people's jobs, especially content creators, but we're not quite there yet. At the moment, the main concern is, I think I called this scientists behaving badly in my notes that I sent to you. Obviously, we keep an eye on scholarly and scientific publishing because it's a huge part of the publishing market. And this article comes to us from the Scholarly Kitchen, which is a blog from the Society of Scholarly Publishing. Researchers have found that telltale ChatGPT prompts have made it into the scientific record. There aren't many, but the fact that they found any means that there could be more. Basically, they were able to prove that some people submitting research papers were absolutely using a chatbot to write their research papers. That matters for various reasons, obviously, because, knowing that the bots have horrible track records with accuracy, it's kind of concerning.
Yeah, I mean, like, when you're a person, you're choosing deliberately to falsify data. An AI doesn't necessarily have that judgment. It's just, I've been given a criteria, I need to hit X number of words. I can't find any additional content to pull in. I will make something up that sounds right, and probably somebody is reading that at some point, but not necessarily. It can just get published. It could just be on like, okay, we hit the number of words, run the grammar bot and go, just to triple check with the specialist.
Yeah.
Robots checking robots, and then off it goes. And then, like, right now, what Annie's talking about in this article is just, these are just being published, or at least they're not necessarily in scholarly sources, but because they look scholarly, they're going to be returning on sources that are polluting, shall we say, results from like Google Scholar, which is not necessarily super curated. It's just pulling in content for you to evaluate. And it's going to probably confuse some people and get them potentially like in some hot water if they're new to using scholarly sources and like the validation that you need to run through and double check. So maybe we can link to our last episode when we talked about like how to check your sources.
Oh, the Welcome to the Internet. Is everyone lying to you episode? Absolutely.
Yes, no one. It's everyone is lying to you.
Everyone is lying to you, yes.
Here's how to start untangling that knot.
Right.
So yeah, we'll link to that just for people that are curious, if just for some thoughts as to tools that you could have in your back pocket.
Absolutely. And it does matter. Like, we do talk about this sometimes, but like the scientific record is like the first draft of all of our educations. Like, this is where our knowledge comes from. This is how we are meant to think about the world. And if it's just being generated by a robot going blah, blah, blah until it hits 700 words, like, that's not good.
Especially when those robots are trained to continue to consume and adjust their content based on what's out there. Because they're going to continue consuming and adjusting. And as more of that content has been generated by robots, you start polluting your data model, and then that is trash. And we've already seen that come into play already with the AIs that exist. When the model becomes available for corruption, and by that I mean through frequent, or becomes exposed to other robots, other AI generated content, minor flaws become exaggerated very quickly.
Yeah.
And what it could originally, solving simple math equations, which it could originally do very quickly and reliably, very, very frequently becomes an issue, like within the space of a couple weeks to maybe 2 months. Like, it can't do that anymore because, again, it has no frame of reference to stop and course correct.
Yeah, there was that viral tweet where it showed that, like, it could do the math one day, and then they came back a week later, and then it couldn't do the math or something like that.
Yeah.
That was insane. I'll see if I can find that. I don't know. I don't remember where I saw it, but I'll see if I can find it.
Yeah, anyway, and so hallucination is a thing. Like, we've already talked about this, and Annie mentioned she'd be linking our AI episode, but we've had a few at this point. But like AI hallucinates. It'll invent information, and then that information is then going to be consumed by other AI and respouted in different ways. It's just going to get worse and worse. Anyway.
Absolutely.
Don't do this, scientists.
Yeah. Meanwhile, over in print and digital news, AI companies have been trying to justify the fact that most of their models come from established media companies, or most of the data that works with their models comes from established media companies. So how should those companies be compensated? Should they be compensated, Kaylee?
Yes, of course they should be compensated. Like, the fact that these like AI like companies are being like, no, it's fair use. No, it fucking isn't. This is exactly why.
Yeah,
like, okay, so just to be clear, Annie and I are not necessarily anti-publisher or anything, but we are more pro-author typically. But like there's a very clear line when someone is hurting the industry. Like, these things are very obvious after like 2 words. Like, don't bullshit me. You know this is trash. You know what you just said was garbage. What are you talking about? Get out of here. So this is why publishers went to, like, Congress and asked them to act. Like, can you imagine? Anyway, I'm sorry, Annie.
So a bunch of authors have opened up a lawsuit against OpenAI and Microsoft, which is the people who do ChatGPT, which is probably like the most famous chatbot right now. The New York Times also has a pending lawsuit against OpenAI and Microsoft. Meanwhile, Condé Nast and IDC and the people behind and the companies behind Vogue, NBC News, People, and the Daily Mail are like, "Hey, OpenAI, what if you just paid us? What if you just paid us now, and then we would not care if you stole all of our content." It's so funny to me because Condé Nast, the CEO of Condé Nast, was the one in Congress saying we need regulation for these AI companies, and now we find out that Condé Nast is in negotiations. Is
also
with
in negotiations.
Like, okay, and in fairness, like, we live in a society. The AI companies are making tons of money, and they are offering millions of dollars to these content companies to say, "Hey, let us keep using your content to train our models and then to populate our models with content."
And consider, it's not that she's saying that both things shouldn't happen.
Right.
I think that it's very clear that both things should happen. One, they should be compensated, and two, there should be legislation involved to make sure that it is done fairly and that the content itself is still protected and the creators are still protected, potentially that is being used for the training purposes.
They should be compensated going forward, and they should be compensated for what already happened.
Retroactively as well.
Absolutely.
But also, like, legislatively, there should be guidelines and requirements and restrictions. So.
100%.
And it should be something that people can point to, and then we can refine over time, like we've done with most other laws.
Agree.
I say most because there are still some very absurd laws on the books.
It's true. Do you know in Virginia it's still illegal to have sex with the lights off?
I did not know that. There's apparently in Tennessee, or we used to do in my government class, we would do like absurd laws or whatever that were still in the books, at least back when I was in high school. And it was like, you can't hunt whales from the back of a giraffe in a landlocked state. And I was like, what? Why? It was what? Why was this necessary?
Save the whales, Kaylee.
But it was like fucking Iowa or something. Yeah, like, it was like, I was like, who spent money to get this? Y'all just needed something to do one day.
I do love
in the 1700s.
Yeah, like, you have to wonder, like, what were they thinking? Like, what was the thought process there? Like, did they see a giraffe and were like,
that'd be good whale hunting steed.
Yeah.
Anyway, so what I'm saying here is that we should get practical laws on the books related to AI, related to how we develop our training, or at least get it officially confirmed that existing laws should apply.
Yes.
And that fair play doesn't count in this case.
Fair use.
Fair use, sorry, I said fair play. Fair use doesn't actually apply in this case. And then move forward. And we can then start to adjust as we need to adapt to a changing system. But, like, you don't just get to be like, oh, my bad. Like, no, you have to pay for everything you've done. You have to pay for things you're going to do going forward. And we need to have something in place that a set of standards that we can use to operate together on level ground.
And in the meantime, don't shoot whales off the back of a giraffe in Iowa.
And if you know what state that's actually from, please let me know. I just vaguely remember that being a thing. And because it's so bizarre, it stuck with me.
Yeah, of course. The last AI update that we had was that the New York Times hired an AI editor. I'm not totally sure what this editor is doing.
And he's going to have a staff. So I don't think it's like, I think it might just be like specifically designed to research all of these sticky things that are coming up.
Yeah.
But also it could be like, then maybe some of the staff are people that are working with AI, like specifically trying to find ways that AI can be, and I think that's part of it because it says so in here, investigating ways that AI could be used in the news industry to improve or enhance, not necessarily detract from the existing, like, incredible, like, work that is being done by journalists.
And how can our corporate policy enable and also add guardrails to that? Yeah. So this came from Pointer, which is a journalist watchdog source. Moving on. Kaylee, we talk about the diversity baseline survey here in publishing all the time, and the new one has just been released. The Lee and Low diversity baseline survey for publishing shows minor improvements, which was pretty much what it showed last year, which is good. Baby steps are still steps.
I was going to say, I mean, if it's stable improvements, which it looks to be, then that means it's going to continue.
Mm-hmm.
It's something that can be sustained and won't backlash, which is an issue we've seen just frequently when you have major strides forward that are a dramatic difference from maybe previous, like, known, I guess, statuses. There's always going to be a backlash. So if you can have and that's what we talk, iterative change is healthy growth. Or at least it's one way to do it that doesn't require violence, which...
Agreed. So this is a survey that's done every year at publishing companies. And it's very important, I think, to talk about because publishing has historically been mostly white. Yep. Though, I mean, mostly female, but still mostly, one gender, and not really accounting for people of different abilities, different races, different ethnicities, and different nationalities. So I think we're doing, and different sexualities and sexual preferences, so gender preferences. So I think that it's really important that this continues.
100%.
Another one that I saw come up on my feed, which was the other one that I was saying comes up every 6 months, was I put
You'll pry my genres out of my cold dead hands.
I wrote in my notes, change your smoke alarm batteries and run the self-clean on your oven. Your biannual Let's Abolish Book Genres take is here.
Never.
Nope.
You as I said before, I'll say it again. You can pry my genres out of my cold dead hands.
So the argument is, in today's day and age, when so many things are so well written across so many genres, do we even need genres?
Okay, fine. Call it something else. Call it a tag. I want to know something about the book to make sure that it fits my interests.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
I will say this. When I'm in a bookstore, I would much rather go to the sci-fi fantasy section because I don't just want unfantastic literature or fiction. I'm sorry. I like brain candy, and that's where I would like to spend my time, at least initially. Like, I also occasionally do go more serious, and that's great for me when I feel like educating myself. But if I want to read about, like, a dragon space mercenary that has, that her girlfriend is like a spider that can transform, and they go solve crimes, that's what I fucking want to read about. I'm not going to find it in the high fiction section. And I don't want to have to go digging. Like, I'd like to have my interests grouped together so it makes it easier for me to find things. Yeah. Then I can spend an hour in a bookstore and buy like 5 books. I have just recently started buying books again, y'all. It's so expensive. Let me just spend a little bit of time, take my 5 books and go cry in my wallet.
Right, exactly.
I'm sorry. I felt very strongly about this.
I'm always reminded of, I want to say it was a Tumblr post. I feel like it was that font of someone being like, why do I like sci-fi fantasy? Because in literary fiction, it's just a bunch of depressed people who are having thoughts about cheating on each other. And in sci-fi, it's a complete rando whose arm has been replaced by an aardvark, and he's going to go save the world. Of course I want to go hang out with that guy. And it's like, that's so true. Why is all literary fiction about people cheating on each other?
I mean, like, find
something else
or
to talk about.
Or spy thrillers or murder mysteries or something, which frequently intersect with the cheating novels. Like, okay, do you want to go digging through, like, if you don't like traditional fluff, and I apologize, but I am going to use this because of a specific genre or vein of this, like romance novels, like the fluff, which don't necessarily they're not Pride and Prejudice. They're the bodice rippers. Do you want to wade through all of those to get to your Proust? Like, no, whatever. Like,
not.
Or to do you want to go see like Lord of the Rings? Like, that's what you're looking for, and you have to go digging because if you didn't, or not Lord of the Rings, maybe you just finished Lord of the Rings, you want something similar. So you go and you don't have an author name to look at. Like, that's not what you want to do either. No. And that's technically fiction. That's what you're asking for. Anyway, you're not thinking this all the way through, and I will fight you until you figure it out.
We are team genre. Please and thank you.
I'm sorry.
It's only for organizational purposes.
I mean, it just helps so much for it. Really, and also it's like so nice when you go into the bookstore and they like have neat little layouts, and they can have little end caps that like encapsulate cool different like covers and exciting new authors that are in this genre, and you have different It's just better.
Speaking of, have you been into any of the new Barnes & Noble layout ones?
I have been within the last couple of months. There's one, I'm trying to think where it was. but it's super cool. I love their new layouts.
It's so much more cozy.
It is.
Like, every section is its own little nook, and then, like, all the edges have, like, here's what our staff is reading. And it's like, I do want to know what I want to know that. Thank you.
Bookstore workers, but you want to work there because you fucking like books.
Yeah.
And you can talk about books, and you want to help people find books, or you just want to stock books quietly in a back, but, like, maybe you're the one that writes all the reviews. I don't know.
Maybe.
But anyway, you like books. You like being around books.
Yeah.
I think that's awesome. I love it a lot, actually.
Moving on to our favorite non-news section. Kaylee, what are you reading?
I'm reading a book called Cursed Cocktails. It is very cute. It is the one I'm actively reading right now that I'll probably be able to finish. Still finishing Crush by Richard Seiken as well, but that's a slow, lengthy read.
Okay.
It's just because it's poetry, so it's not like a lot of dense words, but it's something that you take. Like,
dense emotions.
Yeah, 100%. But Cursed Cocktails is not that. It is cute. It is, I was talking about that fantasy book that I was like, it's not vibing and I don't know why, and then I figured it out, and then I could stop reading it because it wasn't what I was looking for.
We actually didn't publish that because I don't like publishing negative reviews. But
That's
you
fair.
and I talked about it, yes.
Let's try that again. So I'm reading Cursed Cocktails, which is a fun fantasy novel about a character that is at the other end of their journey. So they've done all of the fighting, and they're now trying to find what's next. So they're done the big, heavy pieces, and they're just trying to find a space for themselves and heal, both mentally and physically, because they actually have chronic pain from all of the fighting that they were doing.
Physical trauma, yeah. Of course.
And so he's going south and experiencing slightly kinder environs for himself and finding out what he wants to do with his life. And it's cozy and cute, and I like it.
Thank you for listening to the Ink Stink. This is still Annie and Kaylee coming at you live.
Hey!
Not live. We're recorded probably several weeks before you listen to this.
Coming at you on the air.
On the interwebs.
We did it, guys.
Interwebs is an old millennial phrase.
We made it through the tubes.
We did. All of your tubes. We're coming for your tubes. You can follow us wherever you get your podcasts. You can follow us on Instagram and Facebook and Substack if you would like to read our transcripts. We are trying to be as accessible as possible. The Substack transcripts are the one that we have control of. We have no control over this one that Spotify posts on our behalf. Sorry. You can also find us on YouTube and all of the major podcast apps. You can support us. All of your support is so incredibly appreciated. Thank you so much, Abby. Thank you so much, Kevin. We appreciate you all so much.
You're the best.
You can support us through Substack, Spotify, and on our Linktree. And you can find our Linktree with even more links for more books and more book topics wherever you found this podcast. Thanks for listening.